Welcome back to my below zero no damage run of Mina the Hollower. Today I'm taking on the Radiant Manor, which will complete the challenge. Let's get started with the final fight against Thorne in the middle of Ossex. For the entire fight, Thorne is going to cycle between 3 different moves. He can repeatedly jump, which will cause the usual circle of tornadoes to radiate outward. I usually back off during this attack, but there is a brief window when he lands that you can damage him as long as you're quick to retreat. Next, he can open his mouth and send a grappling hook after you. When it activates, just move to one of the boss's flanks, away from the direction you were in when the attack started. Then you're free to damage him all you want. Lastly, if he raises a claw, he's going to swipe at you. Either back away or burrow under him, and then you can attack once he's done charging towards you. About halfway through the fight, the grappling hook attack will also trigger one of 2 abilities. He'll either drop bombs on the floor or shoot homing fireballs. When the bombs drop, you can treat the attack like normal. Take advantage of the opening and get some damage on them. Just be careful when you burrow away, and don't run into the bombs when you retreat. When he shoots fireballs, I don't even bother trying to attack. Burrow under the fireballs and get ready for the next attack. There's going to be better moments to damage him. When you get inside, there's going to be some dialogue that explains why you have to go through Radiant Manor in the first place. I left this part in just in case someone wanted to see it, but you can otherwise skip to the next timestamp. Now that we're back in the foyer, there will be guards in the area. So I'm going to take them out as per normal, and then there will immediately be another checkpoint we can use instead. I'll be walking through this central area several times as we proceed, so I thought I'd clear the enemies out and then go back to my checkpoint before I get started in the first section. First up, the male villagers will be just like the crows with pitchforks back in September. They'll do multiple stabbing attacks, and you can get them stuck in the wall if you bait them towards one, which gives you a great opening for damage. Now, I won't see them until later, but you can also see female villagers in this room, and they act just like the crows with scythes. They'll toss their weapon in a big circle, and you just have to stand in the middle of it. And lastly, the lions are just like the knights we've seen in other areas of the game, except they can also breathe fire in a small cone in front of them. However, this leaves them wide open as long as you're not directly in front of them, so I actually don't mind this attack at all. I'm gonna skip past the first few enemies because they make it really easy to do so. When you get to the moving platform in the next room, focus on the bird enemies that crash through the windows before you try moving past the barriers, and make good use of the mist jar if you have to. This next part is technically optional, but it leads to a weapon upgrade if you're on a normal run, and it'll also open a shortcut back to the checkpoint that I can use from now on. To get it, we'll have to carry a statue head past the lily pads, which is just a combination of obstacles from Knox's Bayou and Queensberry Crypt, so you should be pretty familiar. There's a few explosive mandrakes in this room, so keep an eye out, and burrow when they appear. Beyond that, the enemies in this room shouldn't be a major problem. Now the greenhouse section is a bit tricky. Immediately break through the second row and jump on the flower to bounce to the next section. Then break through to the next flower, but backtrack to the previous rod until the lightning strikes. This will keep the enemy on the bottom from breaking through to the top half. Now bounce to the next section and break through the third row, right next to the lightning rod. Bounce to the next section and take out all the eggs before they hatch. If you wait for the soldier to patrol to the right, you might be able to sneak by without fighting it. Which is great because the breakable floor and lack of burrows makes that pretty inconvenient. Once you're past them, you have some more eggs to break, and then you just have to break through the middle until you get to the final flower that patrols over the hole. To make it through, you just want to keep alternating which side of the hole you jump to until you reach the end, and then you're going to bounce to the exit. When you're ready to take on the guy with the chain and ball, break through the second row and then stand diagonally from him, just outside of the range of the first ball. If you don't want to fight him, you can literally just chill out here until the lightning rod gets him, but it's significantly faster if you at least go in for some attacks before returning to the safe zone. As long as you're not directly in front of him when he swings his weapon, you should be fine. Whenever you have to pass by a mousetrap, make sure you jump and burrow. You want to get by as fast as possible, or you're going to take a crazy amount of damage. If you want to fight the first two enemies, you certainly can, but you can otherwise just start moving up through the platforms. After the second time you hop the barrier, watch out for the bat. Hit it, and then immediately tunnel under the barrier to avoid the explosion. I'm going to suggest that you don't mess with the snake, but make sure you take out the bat before you continue on, or it's going to be chasing you the whole way. If the positioning doesn't work out for you, go under the barrier again. It'll prevent you from surfacing and you can avoid the damage easily. The rest of the way should be smooth sailing after that. Now there are two things that I forgot here. One, there's another rope down on the other side of these platforms, so I really didn't need to hit the checkpoint twice, but I did. And two, I didn't remember what was in the tunnel over here, so I did some exploring. As it turns out, it was just some blue chests, which I don't need, so just bear with me for a moment. The paintings are new, but they aren't a big deal. Just jump up and attack them whenever they're horizontal from you, and watch for the occasional attack. In fact, if you're fast enough going through the second room, you can actually just ignore them entirely. Once you know how to deal with Furgus, he's way easier than he seems. His attacks will always follow the exact same rotation, though he will modify it based on his life total. He's always going to start by shooting 3 furballs in a row, from whichever head you're closest to. Just attack them when they get close and they'll fly the other way. Next, he'll move to the opposite side of the room and charge you with 2 heads. Find a corner to stand in and then burrow from top to bottom or vice versa, depending on which corner you went with. Then attack the nearest head. Next he's going to do 2 claw swipes, which you just need to burrow away from. He'll follow this up with a spread fire of furballs. And then finally, he'll do another head charge, but this time it'll just be one that comes for you, so burrow under it and counterattack. After all that, the rotation starts back from the top, so just keep it going. After the enrage, the final head charge in the rotation will turn into 2 charges in a row, and on the second charge, it'll also spit furballs from the place it lands. Once you're down to just 1 head, the attack with 2 heads turns into 3 quick head charges in a row, and he stops doing the claw swipes entirely. As long as you don't forget about the changes, and you keep track of where you are in the rotation, you'll be through this boss before you know it. It's easy to run right by the enemies in this room, and it's faster too. Allow me to demonstrate. In this room, however, it'll be to your advantage to take out the adds, at least until you get to the last obstacle. The ghosts are pretty easy to deal with, and the worm that crashes through the center can be exploited using the hole between the platforms for most of its life total. Then you'll be free to move on. Now this room is time sensitive anyway, so I'll once again suggest that you don't actually have to deal with this guy. Now for the Backlit Corridor, which is another tricky section. This time, I highly recommend taking out the enemies as you go. There's a decent amount of adds in here, but it shouldn't be anything you haven't seen before. When you get to the first red bird, just keep circling the first half of the platform. It should keep you out of the way of the spiked columns, and you'll just have to go for the hits when they come to you. Getting greedy here is a good way to make a mistake. The Knight will be the only ad that I would suggest skipping. They take too long to destroy, and the only downside is that you might have to watch for the occasional projectile when you're on the moving platform. Now we just need to push the 2 buttons up here and we'll be free to go back to the checkpoint before the final section. Now personally, I don't find these knights especially difficult, but on the other hand, they take forever to kill, so I'm going to take them out and then return to my checkpoint. This allowed me to do repeated runs of the final platforming section until I got it right, without all the hassle in between. Alright, we're going to start off simple by taking out the slime and then jumping to avoid the projectiles. When you reach the soldier, wait for him to turn left and then burrow past the barrier and move directly above him. When the gate opens, jump to the next platform and then burrow under the barrier and stay under it. This will prevent you from surfacing, and then you can wait until there's enough space to move on. The soldiers will, more likely than not, launch themselves into the hole. Next up is the chain and ball user, but you know the drill. Just stay at a diagonal from him, just out of range of the nearest ball. Go in for attacks until he brandishes the baton, and then get back to the safe zone. Lastly, we have the orbs. Wait until they start moving, then either burrow under them or move to a different platform, and you should avoid them. Then we're just 2 bosses away from completing the challenge. This version of Lionel isn't too bad. He literally tells you exactly what he's gonna do most of the time. Just watch for the blue and pink sparkles. Each blue means a circle AoE around the boss, and each pink means a charging attack in your direction. The blues can be outranged, and you can burrow under the pinks. Pay attention to the speed of these though too. If they go off quickly, there will be no delay between the attacks, so watch out for that. The lightning attack is probably the toughest thing to dodge, but honestly, I got through just ad-libbing. You can jump over them or burrow underneath, and you really just have to watch out for the salvo that moves at a different speed from the others. If you see the alternate version of the attack, you can either burrow near the boss to get through each volley, or you can back off and move between the gaps. If you see him running around on all fours, try luring him into a corner. Wait for him to start shaking and then just burrow past him when he pounces. Sometimes you'll see him summon balls of lightning that stay on the floor. In this case, you just want to stay out of any row or column that has them, because they'll detonate after a while and the cross pattern goes all the way across the screen. Lastly, if you see him raise an arm, burrow away immediately because he's going to charge towards you and go for a grabbing attack. That's all there is to it, but I have one last general tip for you. No matter which attack he's using, try your best to lead him around the edge of the arena, and preferably into the corners. You probably noticed, but many of his attacks will flip the tiles and make it temporarily impossible to burrow through them. As long as you lead him around, you should always have a means of dodging attacks. Before I take on the final boss, my last task will be to return to town and pawn off a bunch of items to minimize my collection percentage. I'll be selling off my vials, my jewel boxes, my trinket bag, my spark container, my train ticket, and a couple of health roses. Then the pawn shop will be full, and as I learned during the credits, it'll put you at negative 5% if you refrain from picking up anything this whole time. During Phase 1, you'll be climbing up the generator as you fight the boss. Let me give you the rundown. Whenever you see him winding up, he's going for a claw swipe. Don't dodge until you see the boss shaking, or you might resurface before the attack goes off. He can delay the attack too, so if you want to counterattack during this one, just make sure you can time it properly. Otherwise, you can just run away from the attack and you'll outrange it, no matter how he times it. Next, you'll see him summoning orbs. Yellow orbs will break into 2 parts and then the pieces will charge at you. Wait for the sound effect that plays when the orb splits, and then burrow past it. If he raises both arms, he's going to charge across the screen. Burrow under the attack, then feel free to get a hit in when he appears on the other side, but watch to see what he does next. If you see a tentacle flashing, just get away from whichever row it's in and run until you're past the place where it lands. Then you can attack it as much as you want. Blue orbs will move from the top of the screen to the bottom while firing additional projectiles horizontally from time to time. If you're running horizontally on the generator, you'll keep the orb from moving down the screen, so either move vertically or stand still, then you can burrow underneath it. Green orbs will float along the top of the screen while firing projectiles down on you. You just have to sidestep these until they stop. There's one other orb that we haven't seen yet. You can potentially see red orbs, and those will match the row you're standing on, and then when you see it flash, it'll fire a bunch of projectiles along the row. While you're on the generator, running horizontally will make them pass over you, but you'll otherwise have to move up or down after the orb fires. If you see both tentacles flashing, dodge it in the same way, and then attack as much as possible. If you fail to do enough damage during this attack, he'll do an ultimate attack that's extremely hard to dodge. Probably because you're supposed to stop it from happening. It's also worth noting that if you ever see a flashing hole on top of a tentacle, you can actually damage it by burrowing inside of it. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know about that until after I completed this run. I also like the amount of damage you can put on the boss during this attack as is, so I'm not going to complain too much about my lack of knowledge. Once you get to Phase 2, you'll be at the top of the generator, but Lionel's attacks will be exactly the same. The only difference is that because you aren't climbing the tower anymore, you may have to react to them a little bit differently. You can still outrange the Quaslight, though, in retrospect, I was a bit too cautious in my winning run. If I were to do it again, I would still outrange it, but try to time the dodge properly anyway. Then anytime I succeeded, I would go in for a hit by going under him, and then I would return to my usual rotation. Just a tip for anyone watching so you can shorten the phase a bit. When he summons orbs during this phase, that's going to be one of the best times to damage him, but once he's done, I highly recommend staying out of range of the claw until they're gone. Most of my advice from Phase 1 still applies here. Wait for the yellow orbs to split before you burrow, sidestep the greens, and burrow under blues when they get close. The reds are a little more dangerous now that you're stationary. Bait them into attacking a row and then move to the other one, or you can just burrow once the shots are fired. When you get to Phase 3, he'll start doing ultimate attacks, but Thorne will block the incoming fire. Then you can attack the boss when he stops to take a breather. Thorne can also block incoming fire from the orbs if he's positioned in front of them. Just be careful, because when he attacks Lionel, he jumps up a little bit, and it's just enough to allow the red orb shots to sneak through sometimes. The most annoying part about this phase is that if you run into Thorne, you'll be knocked back. It won't damage you, but because he goes in for hits whenever Lionel summons orbs, my favorite damage window is essentially closed. You'll have to go in after claw swipes, ultimates, and charge attacks whenever possible. It's also worth noting that if you're ever in a bind, running into Thorne also gives you a short window of invulnerability, just like when you get hit. Now just keep at it, and eventually he'll go down just like all the rest have. This completes the below zero no damage challenge. I'm going to leave the ending sequence in here so you can see the proof of having negative 5% collection in the credits. But once the story beats are over, I'll speed up the video until we get to the relevant part, just for convenience's sake. For any of you that stuck with me through the full series, sincerely, thank you for watching. I'm still pretty new at this, but I've had a lot of fun posting these challenge runs. I don't want to get too sappy on you, but the support of my viewers over this past year has meant a lot to me. I hope you'll continue to stick around, whatever my next series may be. Until next time, take care everyone. If you stuck around for this, don't be fooled. These death counts were brought to you by save scumming, not by being perfect this whole time. I love a good ego massage as much as the next guy, but don't give me more credit than I'm due.